Hi, I'm Roella. My mom told me not to come to my sister's engagement party, said it would be ruin the vibe. But when her fiancé walked in, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Hi, boss." That's when the room froze. They had no idea I was the woman funding the company that paid for the ring. Ever been treated like the invisible one until the truth made them blink? Stick around. Because this story, it's not about revenge. It's about respect, finally earned the hard way. Before we dive in, what time are you listening to this and where from? Drop a comment. You're not just a viewer, you're part of this conversation. I didn't expect the message. Not that morning, not after everything I had quietly done for them. I was sitting at the dining nook in my Austin apartment, sipping espresso from the ceramic mug I'd bought in New Orleans last spring. Sunlight streaked across the floor in angles that made everything feel calm. My inbox was full of investor updates, hiring requests, a few early drafts from our R&D team. I'd started reading them like I always did, focused, methodical, but my mind kept drifting. Leanne's engagement party was coming up this weekend. Big house, catered, full of people with LinkedIn-worthy titles and polite artificial smiles. Still, I thought I'd go. It felt like something I should do, like all those other things I'd done for years. Quiet gestures, showing up, smiling through cold silences and conversations that slid around me like I wasn't even there. So I sent the message. "Hey Mom, I'm thinking of coming in early to help set up for the party. Let me know if you need anything." Sent. Then I went back to reviewing a financial audit report. An hour passed, then 2. At 11:13 a.m., her response arrived. Just one line. "Sweetheart, it's best if you don't come. It might be awkward." I blinked at it, rereading every word like I had misinterpreted something. But no, that was it. A minute later, another text. "Leanne's fiancé is very successful. Let's keep the event drama-free." No explanation, no warmth, just punctuation marks stabbing through me. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Instead, I sat frozen, like my body hadn't gotten the message that the world just shifted. They didn't want me there. Correction, she didn't want me there. I locked my phone and leaned back. The room felt colder, though the temperature hadn't changed. My fingers curled slightly around the coffee mug, but it was already going lukewarm. Leanne's fiancé was very successful. What was I then? I'm the co-founder of a biotech company that just secured its 3rd federal grant. We're developing diagnostic tools that might save thousands of lives. But Mom couldn't explain that over champagne and hors d'oeuvres, could she? She used to call me hard to describe. Leanne was easy, pretty, charming, worked in lifestyle branding. My job involved too many syllables and not enough sparkle. I stood up slowly and walked to my bookshelf. Somewhere on the second shelf was a photo album I hadn't touched in years. I pulled it down and let the dust settle across my fingertips. Every birthday, every holiday, Leanne in center frame with someone's hand on her shoulder. Me? Always blurred, half-turned, cropped out. I flipped to a Christmas photo from 5 years ago. I remembered that day so clearly. Leanne was wearing a red velvet dress. Mom had said, "You look like a movie star." When I walked in, wind-blown and wearing jeans after a delayed flight, she glanced at me and muttered, "At least take off the lab coat before dinner." I turned another page. 4th of July, New Year's Eve, her engagement photos. Not one image where I was more than a background prop. Somewhere around the middle of the album, I remembered a conversation from college. I'd just pulled 3 all-nighters prepping for a campus research presentation. I called home, hoping for encouragement. Mom picked up. "Leanne's having a breakdown over a breakup," she said. "Can you call her? You're stronger. You're stronger." That was her way of saying, "You'll survive without love because you're built for silence." That line became a script for every time I was overlooked. "You're strong, Roella." As if that made it acceptable to never ask if I was okay. I closed the album slowly, spine cracking with age and disuse. Walking back to the kitchen, I picked up my phone again, looked at the last message. "Let's keep the event drama-free." I deleted the calendar invite, removed the travel plan notification. Then, without even knowing I was doing it, I walked over to my desk, powered up my laptop. The screen glowed to life. showing a photo of me and my team, 6 of us standing outside our Austin office, holding the plaque we got for last year's Innovation Award. I didn't open a work tab. I just stared at the screen. I could almost hear Mom's voice in my head again. "You're strong." No, I wasn't strong. I was tired. Tired of pretending that being erased was normal. Tired of thinking love had to be earned like a salary. I clicked the lid of my laptop shut. That was enough for today. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at their table, because I was already building my own. After I closed the laptop, I stayed there, hands folded, heart still. The air in my apartment felt quiet in a new way, like the silence wasn't empty but intentional. No one called to ask if I was upset. No apology followed, no second message, and I didn't expect one. It hit me more slowly than I expected. The so-called freedom. It wasn't light and liberating. It stung, sharp around the edges. It felt like when you step into a bright room after too long in the dark. Your eyes squint. Your brain resists. There was no dramatic moment, no tears. Just that nagging ache you carry when someone makes it clear. They've already chosen who matters more. I didn't go into work that day. I stayed in sweats, cleaned out my inbox, and watched the city shift colors outside my window. People were hurrying to pick up kids, grab groceries, chase errands. And me? I was just sitting in the fallout. The worst part was knowing it wasn't just this one party. That text was just confirmation of what I'd always suspected but never wanted to name. I wasn't one of them. Not really. 3 years ago, on Leanne's birthday, I had rushed over from work, still in my lab coat. I didn't even get to change clothes or wrap the gift nicely. I'd ordered a top-tier health tracker, one of those FDA-approved wearables that actually monitored vitals with medical precision. Something useful. When she opened it, she laughed. "Seriously?" she scoffed. "You always bring weird stuff. How about something fun for once?" The room chuckled with her. Even Mom smiled, trying not to, but failing. I'd seen it. That flicker of embarrassment like I'd shown up with a used candle instead of something celebration-worthy. No one asked how my clinical trial was going. No one cared that I was barely sleeping, handling both board meetings and lab approvals. Leanne was telling a story about her latest social media campaign. Dad called it visionary. Me? I was the one who forgot to wear lipstick. I was always the buzzkill, always the one who made things uncomfortable by not knowing how to sparkle. It wasn't just birthdays. I walked over to the coffee table and picked up my phone. Opened my banking app, a habit I'd picked up from managing tight early-stage funding. My fingers navigated straight to the recurring payments tab. There they were. All the silent transactions. Water bill, $142.12. Electricity, $195.40. Internet plus cable, $243.89. Car repair reimbursement, $648.20. Emergency dental for Dad, $881.06. 2 years worth of monthly handouts, quiet wires of guilt and duty. Total, $15,284.38. And not once, not a single time, had anyone sent me a thank you message. Not even a generic "got it, love you." They didn't check if I was okay during flu season. Never asked if I was lonely during lockdowns. Never remembered that I was living alone when my roommate moved out mid-pandemic. I was the utility. The system they forgot existed until something broke. One particular memory hit harder than I wanted it to. A year ago, Mom called on a Wednesday night. I was reviewing clinical trial protocols after a full day of back-to-back meetings. My eyes were burning. My brain was mush. She didn't say hello, just launched in, "Leanne's switching jobs. The new one doesn't cover her car insurance yet. Can you help with the next few months?" She didn't ask if I could afford it. Didn't ask if I had plans, just assumed I'd say yes. And I did, like always. "Thank you, Ro. You're a lifesaver." Not daughter. Lifesaver. I put down the phone and opened my laptop again, but I couldn't concentrate. That was the first time I realized being the reliable one meant I was invisible in every other way. Reliable was just code for, you'll take it without pushing back. Not anymore. I sat at my desk again, this time for a different reason. I pulled up every single payment portal I had bookmarked. Electric, water, internet, property taxes on the house, click, Cancel autopay, click. Remove stored payment method, click. You will no longer be billed. It took less than 5 minutes to disappear. There was no anger in me, no need for it. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was just done. Done with being a convenience. Done with being the fallback. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the canceled confirmation screens. One by one, they blinked away like I'd never been there at all. If they only saw me as an account, let them learn to live without it. After I canceled the last payment, I didn't move for a while. The browser screen faded to black. My tea, cold and forgotten, still sat beside me. I reached for it and took a sip. Bitter. The peppermint had steeped too long, and like everything else lately, it left a taste I couldn't swallow. I wasn't angry. I didn't even feel righteous. Just tired. The kind of tired that seeps into your bones, not from work, but from being unseen for so long that you forget what being loved feels like. That silence after cutting them off, it should have felt powerful. Instead, it felt like mourning someone who hadn't died, but chose not to recognize you. Maybe they never had. The notifications slowed. The buzzing stopped. The apartment was quiet again. But it wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. I leaned back on the couch, my hand resting on the armrest where the fabric had worn smooth. The same couch where I'd once wrapped a birthday gift for Mom, something I'd spent weeks choosing. Last year, I ordered her a silk scarf from Florence. Not some department store knockoff, but real silk. Warm lavender tones with hand-rolled hems. She always loved purple. I paid for express shipping, had it gift-wrapped in a box with gold ribbon, and included a handwritten card for the woman who gave me strength, whether she knew it or not. She never replied, never texted, never even acknowledged the package arrived. Later that week, I saw a post on Claire's Instagram story. Mom opening a bouquet of roses with a sparkle brunch cocktail in her other hand. Claire was beaming beside her, captioned, "Mimosas with the best mom in the world." No scarf in sight, no mention of it, as if the gift had evaporated, or worse, never mattered enough to bring up. I stared at that post for a long time, not because I envied the flowers or the filtered smiles, but because, once again, the message was clear. I didn't belong in the narrative. I wasn't the daughter people toasted. I was the one who mailed things from afar and got swallowed in silence. That wasn't the first time my gesture had disappeared into a void. And it definitely wasn't the deepest cut. I got up and opened my desk drawer, pulling out an old file folder filled with papers from my senior year of high school. In the middle, still folded neatly, was my acceptance letter to Stanford's Pre-Med Summer Institute. I had earned a full scholarship. It was the thing I'd worked toward for years. Claire had also applied to a PR program in New York that year. She didn't get in. 2 days after my letter came, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. I remember she didn't make eye contact. She was wiping down the counter, avoiding my gaze. "Honey," she said, "Claire's devastated. She's falling apart. We're trying to keep her from spiraling, but that New York tuition?" I already knew where it was going. "We need to put everything into helping her feel secure. If you could defer for a year, maybe take community college classes locally." I said yes before she finished. Not because I wanted to, because I thought that's what good daughters did, but that deferral turned into a detour. I lost my spot. I ended up taking a different path entirely. No one ever asked if I regretted it. No one ever thanked me for stepping aside. Claire went to a second-tier school in state instead, and eventually launched her lifestyle blog anyway. And me? I made it through med school on my own terms, later, with debt that still followed me like a shadow. But even now, even after all my success, they still treat me like the one who almost made it. I walked back to the couch, opened my laptop again, and clicked through old email threads from the last few years. "Ro, the heating bill came early. Could you take care of it? Claire's therapy isn't covered this month. Please handle it. Your dad's back went out again. The chiropractor needs payment today. No, how are you? No, are you eating well? No, how's the project? Just invoices disguised as family updates. And I had paid, every time, without question. Maybe because I thought it would earn love, or maybe because part of me still believed I was responsible for holding the family together. But I wasn't holding anything together. I was being used as glue to patch cracks they refused to acknowledge. I stood and walked to the bathroom, flipped on the light, and stared at my reflection. My eyes looked older than last week. My jaw was tight. But there was a stillness too, a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I whispered to the mirror, "You didn't abandon your family. They made sure you never really belonged." That morning, I arrived at the office just after 7, a little earlier than usual. The streets of Austin were still sleepy, the city wrapped in that in-between quiet before the real noise began. I parked on level 3, took the stairs instead of the elevator, and let the silence follow me up. By the time I stepped into my office, the lights were on, and the scent of fresh ground coffee from the communal machine drifted in. I nodded at our receptionist, gave a tight smile, and pushed the glass door to my space open. It wasn't just another Monday. Something inside me had shifted, quietly but permanently. There was a strange steadiness in my steps, a different kind of posture in my spine. Maybe it was the weight of clarity, or maybe it was what it felt like to finally stop trying to be accepted by people who had already decided you were disposable. I opened my laptop. Emails flooded in, as usual. One subject line caught my eye. HR transfer approval. Incoming staff, New Jersey to Austin HQ. I clicked. There were 6 names listed. Most didn't ring a bell. I was scanning automatically until I hit the 4th one. Julian Kraft, Head of Finance, East Region. I froze, not out of panic, but out of recognition. Julian, Claire's fiancé, the same man Mom and Dad had praised nonstop the last few calls before we stopped speaking. Impeccable background, Mom had said. He manages 8 figures, Dad added. And now, he was transferring. Here, to my office, under my team. I blinked at the screen, scrolled back up, scanned the transfer summary again. His division was being absorbed into our Austin HQ as part of the merger. He'd report directly to our executive finance lead, who reported to me. I leaned back slowly in my chair. The irony didn't just sting, it shimmered. I didn't call HR. I didn't message Claire. I didn't say a word. Instead, I opened LinkedIn, searched Julian Kraft. There he was, same professional photo, clean cut, MBA from Wharton, endorsements for financial integrity and strategic restructuring. I almost laughed, not because any of it was fake, but because I remembered meeting him once, months ago, at a biotech conference in Atlanta. He'd approached me at a booth, polite, confident. "Co-founder Warren," he said with a handshake. "I've followed your work with the genomic diagnostics rollout. Impressive." He hadn't recognized me as Claire's sister. Why would he? I was never the one introduced. Never the one brought to brunch. I was too technical to explain. And yet, now he was walking into a company I co-built from the ground up. A company my parents couldn't even describe properly to friends. That moment at the booth echoed in my head like a strange prophecy. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt awake. I picked up my phone and dialed one of the few people I still trusted, Aunt Evelyn. She picked up on the second ring. "Roella?" Her voice was warm. "I was just thinking about you." I smiled faintly. "Of course you were." We caught up briefly. Weather, health, small things. Then I shifted. "Evelyn, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you ever think some families only love the version of you they can explain to others?" There was a pause, not hesitation, just wait. Then she said softly, "Sweetheart, some people never wanted to understand you. That's not your failure. It's their limitation." I closed my eyes. Does it make me cold to let go? It makes you honest. And finally safe. I didn't need a sermon. Just that. Just someone to say out loud what I'd known in my bones for years. We hung up after a few more words. I placed my phone face down on the desk and sat there, the transfer email still open in the corner of my screen. I didn't cancel it. Didn't flag it for review. Didn't forward it to Claire with a snide warning. No need. I just approved the transfer and clicked Mark as read. Life had a way of bringing the pieces together when you least expected it, and sometimes all you had to do was sit still and let it unfold. That Saturday morning, I didn't set an alarm. The sun crept in slowly through the sheer curtains, casting golden slivers on the hardwood floor. I didn't dress up, didn't rush anywhere. I just poured myself a cup of black coffee, opened my laptop, and sank into a familiar rhythm. Reviewing quarterly financials, updating proposal notes. Outside, birds chirped softly, as if the world hadn't picked sides last week. Inside, I felt calm. Then, just after 10, my phone buzzed. Incoming video call. Evelyn. I stared at the screen. She never called on video. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second before I tapped accept. Her face appeared, lit only by a dim flashlight. She looked flustered, her eyes shifting toward something off-screen. "Roella," she whispered. I didn't know who else to call. "Are you okay?" I asked. Before she answered, the camera shifted. It was chaos. The house, their house, was filled with guests, but everything was off. The lights were out. People were murmuring in awkward clumps, some fanning themselves with folded paper napkins. In the background, I heard Claire's voice rising. "Mom, the caterer just left. They said the fridge wasn't cold enough to store the shrimp." Then Mom, "Why is nothing working? Where's the Wi-Fi? I can't call the electric company, it's just looping me." Evelyn whispered, "They don't know I called you." Leanne stormed into view, clutching her phone. "Julian's almost here, I swear. If this party gets ruined over a tech issue, I'll lose it." I said nothing, just watched. Another voice cut through the air, one I hadn't heard in months. My mother. "She's probably sulking. You know how Roella is, always waiting for attention in the most passive-aggressive ways. No one would be that heartless, unless she was trying to get even." My jaw didn't clench. My hands didn't shake. I just kept watching, the phone balanced against my palm like it weighed nothing at all. "She doesn't know you're here," Evelyn said softly. "They don't know you're hearing any of this." "Good," I replied. Then, as if on cue, the front door opened, and silence swept through the room. Julian stepped inside, adjusting his blazer, his face calm but alert. He held a gift bag in one hand, scanning the commotion with growing confusion. Leanne rushed up to him, her voice thin with panic. "Nothing's working, Jules. The lights are out. The internet's down. Everything's going wrong." He nodded, trying to maintain composure. "It's okay. I'll see if I can help." He stepped into the kitchen, just as Evelyn's phone shifted slightly. His eyes landed on me. It took him half a second to connect the face, then another to realize the weight of what he was seeing. "Roella Bundy," he said slowly, brows drawn tight. "You're on this call?" His voice dropped. "You're the co-founder of Novagene?" The room stilled. All the noise evaporated in an instant. Claire turned to look over Julian's shoulder. She squinted at the screen, recognition flooding her face like cold water. Julian's voice was just above a whisper now. "You're my new boss?" Leanne's face contorted like she'd been slapped. Her mouth opened, then closed again. No words, just stunned blinking. Mom took a step back, hand covering her lips. Evelyn adjusted the phone gently. She didn't say a word, didn't need to. Her silence was more honest than anything that had ever come from that house. I looked at Julian. "I hope your introduction goes smoothly," I said evenly. "Welcome to the team." Then I ended the call. Just like that. No gloating, no explanations, just a clean break, like scissors through ribbon. I set the phone down on the counter, walked to the sink, and rinsed my coffee cup. Outside, the day had turned bright, the kind of brightness that felt like a fresh page. I dried my hands and returned to my desk, flipping back to the spreadsheet I'd been working on. Numbers didn't judge. They didn't lie. They didn't pretend not to know you at parties and then beg for recognition when the lights went out. Let them sit with it. I returned to the office on Monday with the same energy I always carried, focused, intentional, calm. The kind of calm that came from knowing I didn't need to prove anything anymore. No one had reached out. Not Leanne, not Julian, certainly not my parents. Not even a vague, empty text saying, "Can we talk?" The silence confirmed it. They were too stunned, too embarrassed, or too entitled to acknowledge the truth that had walked into their living room via a video screen, and I had no plans to chase any of them for closure. They had made their choice, and I had made mine. That evening, around 6:30, as I was folding laundry while waiting for a call from our legal team, I heard a knock on the door. Not the kind of tap that neighbors used when they needed to borrow sugar. This knock had rhythm, intent. I walked over, expecting maybe a courier with a misdelivered package, but when I opened the door, I froze for just a second. Standing there, straight-backed and oddly formal, were my parents, Martin and Sharon. Dad had that half-pleasant smile he always wore when asking for favors. Mom clutched a small tote bag, her lipstick slightly smudged, eyes wide like she was trying too hard to look together. "Can we come in for a moment?" Dad asked, voice carefully neutral. I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and gestured toward the kitchen. They walked in like they were entering a stranger's home, and maybe in some way they were. They sat at the table like they were rehearsing a play. I poured 2 glasses of water and set them down without a word. "Look," my dad started, adjusting his sleeves. "We're not here to fight. It's just, things have been hard since Saturday." "Claire's a mess," Mom added quickly. "She hasn't been eating. Julian hasn't been returning her calls. You know how sensitive she is." I waited. The real reason was coming. My father leaned forward slightly. "Your mom and I were wondering if you could help out a bit. We're not asking for anything extravagant, maybe $2,000 a month, just to keep things running smooth." That was it. No apology, no mention of the years I spent paying their bills without a thank you. Just straight to business. As if Saturday had been a technical glitch. As if I hadn't heard them accuse me of heartlessness behind my back. As if nothing had changed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I stood, walked to the bookshelf, and pulled out a small folder. From inside, I took a single page and slid it across the table. "What's this?" my dad asked, narrowing his eyes. "A contract," I said. "If I'm expected to contribute $2,000 monthly, Claire will contribute $1,000, and when you both pass, all assets, including the house, are legally willed to me." My mother's jaw dropped. My father's face darkened. "We raised you for 30 years, and now you want a contract?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "No, I want clarity. I want fairness. I want something I've never been given in this family. Respect." He slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses shake. "Unbelievable. We ask for a little help and get legal terms like we're strangers." I didn't blink. "Strangers don't forget your birthday," I said quietly. "Strangers don't call you embarrassing for working in a field they don't understand." Mom reached over, her tone soft but trembling. "We didn't come to argue. But Claire, she's delicate. She's not as strong as you." I laughed. Not loudly. Just a tired, bitter chuckle that echoed everything I had swallowed over the years. "Right, I'm strong. That's why you never asked how I was sleeping when I was juggling clinical trials and hospital budgets. That's why you called me when the pipes burst, but never when I published research in Nature." She looked down. Dad didn't. Instead, he stared hard. "You're turning your back on your family." "No," I said. "You turned your back when you told me not to come home. I'm just finally listening." Silence stretched, tense, loud in its judgment. Then I remembered a flash from years ago, one summer when the AC broke and they called me home from a Seattle conference. Claire was in Paris, sipping wine and photos. I was under a crawl space, holding a wrench. That night, Mom had whispered, "Be the bigger person, Ro. That's your strength." That sentence had followed me through every sacrifice. Now I saw it for what it was. Not praise, but permission to be used. Dad stood up fast. "Come on, Sharon, we're wasting our time." He grabbed the paper from the table and crumpled it in one hand like it insulted him. My mom hesitated. Then she stood too, eyes misty but not sorry. "We didn't raise you to be this cold." I followed them to the door, holding it open. "You didn't raise me," I said calmly. "You raised Claire. I raised myself." And I closed the door behind them. The day after my parents walked out of my apartment, I slept better than I had in months. The silence wasn't loud anymore. It was liberating. I went to the office, caught up on paperwork, even laughed once during a Zoom meeting with our clinical research partners. The storm had passed, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't waiting for lightning to strike again. But on the 3rd day, it came. My phone lit up during a late lunch. A voicemail from Claire. Just seeing her name gave me pause. I pressed play, holding the phone slightly away from my ear, already bracing myself. Do you have any idea what you've done, Roella? Her voice was shaking, not with sadness, rage. Julian won't talk to me. Mom's barely spoken since the party. You humiliated all of us, and now I hear you're demanding property? Who does that? She paused, then her tone changed, sharp and cold. You manipulated him, didn't you? You set this up. You always act like the victim, but you're the most controlling one of all. I ended the voicemail before she could finish. I didn't need to hear the rest, but I already knew what came next. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, I opened Instagram and saw her story. Just a black screen with white text. Some people pretend to be empowered, but really just manipulate behind a lab coat. Beware the quiet ones. Subtle enough not to name me. Direct enough that anyone close would know who it was about. Within hours, I got a string of messages from mutual acquaintances. Is everything okay with you and your sister? I saw something weird on Claire's story. Should I be worried? I didn't reply to any of them. I just went still, watching how calculated it all was. Her fallback plan wasn't Julian, it was the narrative. And then came the envelope. Official. Padded. From a small law firm in Houston. I opened it to find a claim. A request for mediation over a verbal support agreement made between myself and my parents. They were seeking $12,000 in unfulfilled contributions from the past 6 months. My mouth tightened. The audacity wasn't even surprising anymore. They knew the utilities had been cut by me. They knew I had stopped helping. But this was how they fought. Passive aggression disguised as legalese. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I scanned the letter, took a photo, then forwarded it to my attorney with a single sentence. Document everything. No response for now. I didn't even flinch. And Claire? I blocked her on every platform, text, call, email, even LinkedIn. I was done playing in the sandbox she still mistook for a chessboard. The next morning, my assistant, Kelly, popped her head into my office just before a team meeting. Hey, just so you know, Julian stopped by HR this morning. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. I raised an eyebrow but didn't look up from my laptop. Did he ask for me? No, just kind of wandered, looked confused or broken, honestly. I nodded once. Let him be. Some things need to fall apart so the truth can breathe. I meant it. He had fallen in love with the curated version of Claire, the one who fluttered through rooms with grace and giggles. The real Claire, the one who weaponized emotion and played everyone against each other, had started to show. And when masks fall, they rarely come off clean. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching dusk settle over Austin. The air was warm but carried a breeze that hinted at rain. The city moved on without knowing what had just happened in one biotech executive's family. There were no headlines, no breaking news, just a quiet shift of power. One woman stopped being the scapegoat, and she wasn't going back. The sun cracked through the blinds, painting lines across the hardwood floor like prison bars. I hadn't moved much since Saturday, just enough to keep the plants alive and the house from going silent with neglect. And yet my world felt cleaner somehow. Emptier, yes, but honest. I was sipping lukewarm coffee when I spotted it, an unread email buried between supplier updates and grant cycle reminders. Subject, apology and goodbye. I hesitated, then clicked. I've been thinking about everything, about Claire, about the engagement, about you, and I'm ashamed. Not because of anything you did, but because I let someone else define who you were. I saw your name on the org chart every day, and still, I didn't look deeper. Until now. I'm ending things with Claire. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. She's not who I thought she was. I'm sorry, and I respect you more than you know. I stared at the screen, not breathing. A part of me waited for a second email saying, just kidding. But no, that was it. I placed my mug down gently, as if any sudden movement might shatter this fragile moment of truth. Then I leaned back in my chair and let it sink in. I didn't feel triumphant. There was no thrill, no victory dance, just quiet. By evening, my phone buzzed again. Claire, a text, then another, then a third. I know you're probably enjoying this, but please, can you talk to Julian for me? He's confused. You're his boss. If you say something, he'll listen. Ro, I know you're still mad, but this isn't fair. You win, okay? Just fix this. I stared at the messages without emotion. And then, with the calm of a surgeon, I typed, Julian left because of who you are, not because of anything I said. I didn't even wait for a response. Instead, I walked outside to the balcony. The sky was bruised in streaks of purple and orange, like it too had been through something today. My phone vibrated again, but I didn't check it. The next morning, I finally looked. Claire had written, You're right, but I don't want to lose him. Please, just this once. No demands, no insults, just desperation. And yet, I felt nothing. I didn't respond, not out of cruelty, but because there was simply nothing left to say. I returned to my apartment, pulled out an old vinyl, something jazzy, something low, and let it spin in the background while I tidied the kitchen. I let the silence thicken, not as punishment, but as protection. Not a tear, not a smile. Just this clarity I hadn't known I needed. Sometimes silence is the clearest answer. The rain had stopped overnight, leaving a film of silence across my apartment windows. I made coffee, the kind I reserved for weekends, deep, earthy, with a touch of cinnamon. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. A week had passed. No calls, no messages, no apology from Claire, nothing from my parents. That kind of silence used to terrify me. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. When people can't manipulate you anymore, they tend to vanish. It wasn't shame keeping them away. It was the loss of control. Monday morning eased in like any other. My calendar was packed, FDA meetings, internal lab check-ins, onboarding for a new analyst. But the tension that used to sit in my shoulders was gone. I stepped into the lab, greeted by the gentle hum of centrifuges and the buzz of purposeful chatter. Julian passed by in the hallway. We exchanged a polite nod. His face looked rested, focused, no mention of Claire, no sidelong glances. He respected the boundary, and I respected the man who chose truth over comfort. At 11:30, I had a call with our international collaborators in Berlin. By 2 o'clock, I was deep in data from our most recent trial. There was no chaos, no emotion, just work and a strange sense of wholeness. On Sunday, I drove down to San Antonio. The sun was low when I parked near the old public library I used to walk past on my way to school. I didn't visit the house I grew up in. I didn't need to see the swing Claire used to hog or the porch light that never blinked when I came home late from study sessions. I just walked. Past streets whose names I still remembered, past a corner bakery that once smelled like cinnamon rolls and disappointment. It wasn't sadness. It was release. Those sidewalks didn't hold me anymore. They were just concrete now. Not memory, not meaning, just streets. I met Aunt Evelyn at a small cafe near the River Walk that afternoon. She greeted me with a soft hug and a longer pause before speaking. "You look lighter," she said, sipping her tea. I smiled. "I think I left a few ghosts behind." We sat for a while, the kind of silence only two women who've seen enough betrayal can share. Then she leaned in and said, "You didn't win, Roella. You healed. That's harder." I looked out the window at the passing boats, at the tourists taking selfies, and the kids feeding ducks below the bridge. "Sometimes healing means choosing yourself," I said quietly, "even if it means choosing solitude." She nodded, her expression both proud and mournful. Back in Austin, the wind had picked up. I lit a candle on my windowsill and curled into my chair with a book I had meant to read for months. No texts from anyone, no surprises, only the rhythm of rain starting again, soft and steady against the glass. I wasn't waiting for reconciliation anymore, or a confession, or that one perfect apology. I was done waiting. "I'm not waiting for them anymore," I whispered to the room. "I'm building without them." Some wounds don't need apologies. They need distance and light. Some family stories don't end with hugs or healing. They end with boundaries. Roella's journey reminds us that choosing peace over approval is not selfish. It's survival. Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? Let us know in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if stories like this speak to you, Make sure to subscribe for more powerful tales of resilience, justice, and real-life family drama. You never know. The next one might feel a little too familiar.
Did you enjoy my story? What a journey it has been. I truly wonder, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have chosen silence to keep the peace, or would you have done what I did to reclaim your dignity? Let's meet in the comments below. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. I'm reading every single one. Which city are you listening from tonight? If my story resonated with you, you can support me and help me bring more stories like this to the world by sending a super thanks. Your sweet support means the world to me and allows me to continue this journey with all of you. On the screen now, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend you watch next. There are so many more on my channel, each with its own lessons and triumphs. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you for being here with me. Until the next story, with love and respect.